Welcome to Promote Profit Publish. I'm your host, Juliet Clark, and we have Johanna McGool who's going to add to this today. So, you guys, I wish there were more people here because this is a pretty important topic. I'm doing it live, but it'd be great if people saw it in person so they could actually ask questions. But I do want to say, if you're someone who's listening to this on a podcast and you want to see the slides, please go over to our YouTube channel, Superbrand Publishing, and you can see it over there. So let me get the slideshow up. And so this is a really important topic because, and Johanna can add in on this, how many people are writing books with AI? And you can tell that they're writing books with AI because they are really bad books. So, I wanted to talk about that today because there are a lot of changes going on in the copyright world, and it is becoming increasingly difficult to get books through. And one of the reasons is that so many people are writing, they are just deluging the market with children's books, with AI graphics, AI words, AI everything. And we can't get those books. We cannot get them copywritten because the Copyright Office is on to all of us. So, hold on. It doesn't appear to be changing slides here. So it's going to be one of those days. There we go. So human authorship is the new gold standard with all of this. It was always the standard, but now we have to make it the gold standard because people are taking so many shortcuts. So, the US copyright is fundamentally changing how they copyright. And so there are different things that you will have to do for different types of books. Fully generated AI content can no longer be copyrighted at all. So that makes a huge difference. And they can usually tell when a book is created that way. It also matters, this copyright law, because we want to incentivize human creativity. The best books come from that human creativity and really being able to build out and do this in your voice. Even though AI is getting better, like I have my AI trained in my voice, I still wouldn't use it to write a book because it's trained for smaller ideas. And what I mean by that is I have it trained for social media. I have it trained to write blogs. And even with blogs, I go in and I finesse some of the language in it. And the third part of this is that, economic incentives, we're all in the book business. We're in the coaching business for many of us as well. And those economic incentives flow from creators, not the machines. I noticed that some people are starting to put together clone generated courses. And I'm even noticing that people are rejecting those as well because they want human interaction. If you all remember during COVID, we were all screaming for human interaction. And I think it's going to be exactly the same way with AI. We're going to want that human interaction. So these are times when AI can be copyrighted, and it's important to know this. So expressive elements. So if you write a book, you can get help with AI, but it needs to be mostly your work. And what I mean by that is when you write, you might go through and ask, somebody just told me they did this. They had areas that when they went through their second draft of the book, they saw some areas where they used AI to help rewrite some areas. But the significant part, the first draft, was their work. So you can definitely use it for those smaller things. Sometimes I'll use it for different words. Peter's on the call. I think you're the one that told me you hate that word impact, or somebody did. And so, you can go through. Oh, I'm sorry. That was my editor who did that. I had a lot of impact in my book that's coming out in March. And my editor came through and said, I hate that word. Let's jump on AI and find some words that'll replace that, because he felt like, I had it too much in there. So you can use it for little things like that. You also have to be able to prove to the Copyright Office that creative input that you did was evident and substantial. That is very important as well, because they're going to be looking for that AI balance. And a lot of you guys probably don't know this, but now when publishers upload a book, we are required to say, was this generated by AI? So the publishing side of this wants to know as well. And I suspect if you have an AI generated book, your algorithm is going to go downhill very quickly because they're going to value that human input and creativity far more than they are the AI. They also want to know that the author's work is perceptible and the creative arrangements or modifications were very minimal on this. So every book is going to be a little bit different, but you can expect if you are publishing a book that your publisher is going to ask you, how much of this was done by you, how much with AI, how much did your editor use? So there are going to be a lot of considerations there. That, speaking of editors, that's another thing we're seeing a lot of is people assume when they write a book on AI that it's all correct. It's not. My AI makes, I guess you would call them pronoun errors all the time. So, the they, there, it gets the wrong one in there all the time. And nothing drives me crazier than somebody that doesn't use THEY''RE correct. That's one of my pet peeves. And my AI does not use it correctly sometimes. The prompt exemption. So this came about because of the kind of comic books. There's a word for it, and I can't think of. Johanna, what are those comic books called now? They're called something else.
You're talking about, oh gosh, yeah, they're like adult comic books, you mean?
Yeah, the adult comic
graphic.
books.
They call them graphic
Graphic novels. Yeah,
Yes,
this came
yes.
about because of the graphic novels, and I'll actually have a case study for you in a minute. When the copyright asks for how was this created, just giving them a prompt is not sufficient. So the case study I'm going to show you, somebody used Mid-Journey, and they just provided prompts. So what happens with the copyright is many times I will submit a copyright, and the copyright office will come back and ask questions. And the biggest question that I get is, was this a work for hire or did the author actually build these illustrations? So if you go out and you hire an illustrator and you pay them, it's called a work for hire. And you can claim that as your own work because you paid that person for them. If it was somebody who did it for you for free, the Copyright Office is going to ask you to attribute them in some way in the copyright so that nobody gets sued later when the illustrator comes back and says, well, that book is 90% my work and I didn't get paid a dime on it. So, but just the prompt, giving them the prompt you use to get the graphic or, having the book done is not going to be satisfactory for this. You're going to have to create a sort of, in accounting, we would call it an audit trail. You're going to have to provide the same thing here for the Copyright Office on there. So AI Assistant does qualify when you're getting a copyright done if you use generative AI tools, but you use them to manipulate some sort of original work. Or if you take an AI work, but you significantly manipulate it into your own work. So you have to be able to show that you did most of the work on this. Also, hands-on involvement. So this is where I'll show you in a minute what I mean by the documentation, or this is actually what it is by the documentation. If you create images of some sort, create that audit trail, video what you're doing, open it up in Canva, or if you're using Adobe, whatever illustration program you're using, open your Zoom and show the audit trail of it. I took it from this original that I drew, and then I added this on for AI. I went back and adjusted it here. Have an audit trail so you can prove to the Copyright Office that you truly did have the creative mind behind this. And in the case of graphics or illustrations, that you actually created them yourself as well. And I will say something, when you use AI graphics, I only use them for blogs. I use them for social media sometimes. I use a program called FAL.ai that does really cheap graphics for you, really cheap illustrations. It'll actually take a photograph and make it into a movable, like very short video. But when I use that, I don't use that in books. And the reason I don't is because you need 300 or DPI better in order for the print to come through on the book correctly, especially for premium color products like a children's book. So most of the time, if you're using AI for that, you're not going to get the quality that you need for that to have a really sharp image in the book. And I'm going to tell you how we know this. Dorothy, who's on this call, has a cookbook, a beautiful cookbook. And I tried to do a few images with AI, and we ended up going back to Deposit Photo and buying all of the images. And it was a lot. I think it has like 100 pages. We went back and bought them because we weren't getting the quality we wanted from the AI. And Dorothy may not even know that, that we had to go back, and she knew we chose them, but she didn't know we tried AI first. But the nice thing about FAL.ai, I put $20 in last July. I'm just about to refill now. So I've been running that the graphics are 1 to 5 cents most of the time versus a deposit photo where they're a dollar a piece. Now, you do have to learn how to prompt over there to do it, and it can be trial and error. When I have problems, I'll go to Perplexity and I will say, this is what I'm looking for. Can you write me a prompt to get it? If I'm having problems prompting over on FAL, and then I'll take that prompt over to FAL and put it in. And usually I get a good picture. I just need some additional help on it. So manuscripts and written content. So, on the manuscripts and written content, almost probably everybody here has heard about Anthropic's use of copyrighted books to train AI, and the court ruled that that was fair use. Now, it's fair use if you use the copyrighted works to train your AI only under certain conditions. And this is probably more for fiction authors. It doesn't qualify if you train your AI on someone else's book and then come out with a book of your own that's very similar. I'm going to give you a great example here. I'm a huge Michael Connolly fan, read everything he's ever done, watch all those shows he produces. If I were to take and put Michael Connolly's books into AI and then say, write me a story with my characters, and they came out looking like a Vosh novel, that would not be fair use of AI for that. I would love to. I would love to make his kind of money. I would love to produce all those TV shows, but it would literally be stealing his work. So, and it would be evident that I trained my AI on his work. So, if you do use AI to train, be sure you stay away from that. Now, I'm going to caveat that a little. There is a great program out there, and I probably should have had him on to talk a little bit about it. There's a program out there called Plotter, and it's Plottr, and a lot of nonfiction authors use it. It's a great place to build your characters, build your storylines, build your storyboards, but that's different than writing the book from AI. What you're doing is sort of creating a storyboard like you would for an ad or a movie or whatever you're pitching. And that is a great use of AI because it'll help you tweak your characters a little bit. And I've actually played with that a little bit. I really like it. What you can't do with it is there's another program, and I don't want to besmirch them, but I've had a book idea, fiction book idea for a long time. I went over and put my idea in it. It started writing, and it took the story off in a completely different direction. So it got a mind of its own and took a lot of the really good elements out of my story. So I just dropped it.
Can
So
you
you
take
do have,
Juliet, could you mention what that product is so we know to veer away from
no,
it?
no, I will not.
Alright, good, okay.
I don't want to besmirch somebody's product because you guys may find it and use it and think it's fantastic. I didn't think it was that fantastic, and I didn't like that it was really good. Let me backtrack. It was really good about filling in details, building the background, building the story, the show versus tell, which is probably one of my weakest points when I'm writing fiction. What it wasn't good at is staying with my storyline. It wanted to take it in different directions that I didn't want to go. So that's why I said you guys may find it great. I didn't find it that great. And I try all of these things. So, and I will say that is one of the reasons if you go out and talk to a lot of authors, they don't like AI because they like that creative juices that the stories they put out themselves. Now, that doesn't mean that authors shouldn't use AI because it's fantastic for building your platform. So just don't write your book with it. Your original writing is protected. As I said earlier, you can use AI passages for revision, but not the whole book. And then you need to disclose if you've used it more than just a little, where you've used it, how you've used it. And if you've written, like here, it gives the example. If used it to write chapter 3, they're not going to copyright chapter 3. So full AI use is unprotected. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah,
Yes.
shaking your head. Thank you. Graphics and visual content. This is where I'm seeing so many problems. So, the case of Zarnia, a Dawn case, is probably one of the first ones that was challenged. And the creators, this was a graphic novel, and the creators used Midjourney AI, which is an excellent program, by the way, to create the characters. We actually used it for my son's book to create the images of the characters. But
What's it called, Juliet? What's the one
it's
you're
called
talking?
it's called Midjourney AI.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but we didn't have the illustrations done with it. He just he wanted visual versions that he put on his wall with the descriptions of the character when he was writing. So we described a character. Midjourney went in and created the hero, the blonde haired, good looking, Robin Hood type of guy, muscles. That was as far as we went with it. But apparently, with this case, they did the whole thing in Midjourney. So what happened in this case was that the author's written text could be copyrighted, the images could not. And we've run into that several times now with people that have brought us children's books. And one of the reasons they're cracking down so hard is because a lot of authors decided that they could make a living and quit their day job if they just cranked out a children's book a day on AI. So all of these books started showing up on Amazon that were pretty much all AI generated. And I think that's why the publishers started asking the questions as well. So this is a case where if you wanted to use a little bit of Midjourney to modify, you would open up Zoom and show that journey that you did with the illustrations so that if the copyright office came back, you could prove how much was actually AI, how much was you again on that. So again, same thing. Show your creative decisions and how they shape the final output. How much was hands-on manipulation and refinement? How much was not? And then how much human authorship was there. So again, a video, a revision history. If you're using something like, I don't know about Midjourney, but if you're using something like Adobe, there is always a revision history there. I bet it's the same thing with Canva. And actually, one of the books I got, she created the entire book with Canva AI, which she used Canva, but it didn't count because she used the AI that's now in Canva. So you have to be careful with that as well and make sure that you're actually creating these things. And again, the work goes beyond prompting. You can't just put a prompt here and say, this is what I did. They're going to want to see that genesis of what you just put together. Does it make sense to everybody? So best practices, document your process, go beyond the prompting. Everybody knows what prompting is, right? I probably should have clarified that. So you don't, Dorothy, it's how you get to the image. So remember I just talked about if I'm having problems with FAL.ai getting the image I want, I'll go over to Perplexity. I'm prompting Perplexity to give me a better prompt is what I'm doing. So it's the instruction that you give the AI is what it is. Okay. And so consider supplementary materials when you submit. So if you're going to a publisher, a self-publisher or a hybrid publisher, and you're bringing the book to them, disclose that I have used AI and here's my journey, and you can submit this to the copyright office as well, because I have a place where I can upload the manuscript, but I can also make notes and upload additional information. And that'll actually make the copyright go faster because what happens at the copyright office is they look at it, and if they have questions, they'll write you and they'll give you 30 days to respond. And so you could go back and forth. But if you just do it all at once, you're going to get that copyright a lot sooner on there. So publishing contracts. This is where Johanna's going to help me a little bit because for those of you who don't know Johanna, she is actually an agent, a book agent. And so I'm going to talk about hybrid and self, and she can tell you a little bit about the actual traditional world and what to look for there. And she actually, if you're interested, she has a course that she's going to share as well that you can go over and take for these contracts. So one of the things that I ran into too many times last year, more times than I can count, was people who I'm republishing books because they were unhappy with their publisher. So some things that are really important when you get that contract is number one, have somebody go over it with you that can speak English, not publishing English. And what I mean by that is there are a lot of terms in the publishing world that don't mean what you think they mean. So you end up being really disappointed. I try to speak plain English. I have seen contracts lately that don't have any deliverables. So that's where I'm going to get into what will the publisher do for you and what is included in their service. If you look at my contract, and I think most of you have worked with me, I have what I call deliverables. So I state, we will do the formatting, we will do the cover design, we will do the uploads. So I have everything laid out. We will do the copyright. We will file your LCCN. So be sure that when you get the contracts, you have a list of deliverables there, exactly what that person's going to do. I get from a publisher in Texas at least twice a year, I have to republish his books. And when people give me their contract to look at, it is garbage. It doesn't say what he's going to do. By the time they've come to me, a lot of times their book is 9 months to a year in. It hasn't been published because he hasn't done anything. He's not meeting with them. Also, find out, will your publisher meet with you on a regular basis and give you updates? I meet with my clients every week. I get, for book marketing, I get referrals from a couple publishing companies. There's one in particular that every single client complains. I get a once a month meeting with this person. And most of the time, it's an assistant that shows up or they cancel, and I don't get to meet with them at all. So make sure that you have someone that'll meet with you regularly, tell you what's going on, explain the services, explain how the publishing world works, and then find out what are your responsibilities as an author. In 2026, I actually have a program now that when you sign the contract, you have to go through the course. And it's all about how you have to submit, what you have to sign off on. I don't want books that aren't professionally edited anymore because they're not the best books. So you have to sign off that it's professionally edited. You have to sign off that those images are commercially purchased. So everything, find out what your responsibilities are so that you thoroughly understand what you have to deliver and what your deadlines are. So make sure that you have clarity on every single deliverable requirement before committing. Another thing that I want you guys to really look for is, what does the contract say they get commission or royalty wise? Are they taking a piece of your royalty? And are they wanting part of your other things associated with the book? I just got another contract. I haven't seen one in about a year that actually says that they want a piece of your course. Don't ever give anybody a piece of your course. That's your IP. You're the one teaching it. About 3 years ago, I got someone, the contract said that the publisher got 30% of any course that was delivered by the author. When I asked her, how much do you make a year on your courses? It was about 250,000. And so she determined that she did not want to give them $80,000 for doing nothing. So be sure that you look and you understand that area of the contract. Um, Ask about design limits. Does the publisher create the cover? Are you locked into their cover? Can you bring existing artwork? We actually, for the most part, require you to bring existing artwork, and I'm going to tell you why. We have a great book, Break Free of Your Dirty Little Secrets, and it's a self-help book. It is an amazing read. But When the author came to me, you have to understand it's a game of telephone where she tells me what she wants, and then I communicate that to the designer. And so she said, I want something a little bit racy that goes with Break Free of Your Dirty Little Secrets. So I communicated that to the cover designer. And what we got back, I would classify as erotica. It was a woman in lingerie with a blindfold. And that was not what we were aiming for. So I prefer now if you work with a designer on your own and bring us that front cover. Not required if you have something simple, but something like that. She actually went back and brought a beautiful cover with, butterflies and something that was befitting a self-help book, not soft porn. So something to ask about. Who's going to write the back cover copy? Does the author have to write it or will the publisher help you? We help our people. Do they need testimonials? Can they include endorsements? Carrie Cassell came from my favorite what do you call it? Book producers, writing coaches, Pat Snow, and she has endorsements in the front of her book. I actually worked with Pat Snow on my latest book that's coming out on March 3rd. I have testimonials and endorsements in the front, and Pat actually wrote my foreword for me. So make sure, ask if those things are necessary. If you don't have them and the publisher would like them, get started on them right away because they're harder to get than you think they are. You're asking someone to read your book. And I actually have a methodology that I use with my people. If the person hasn't written it for you within 30 days, we will give them a list of testimonials for it and say, is there one here that, meets your criteria that maybe we could finesse a little bit? We do that because, it is hard to write from scratch sometimes. And the biggest thing on the design, the artwork, is make sure that you have permission to use the artwork on there and buy a commercial license if necessary. We actually had, this was so hard to believe. We had an entertainment attorney who should have known better, who brought us a book that was about entertainers who were getting blocked in Israel from entertaining in Israel. And she had a Hollywood Squares type cover with the celebrity images in the squares. And when I asked her for the commercial license, she's like, oh, I pulled these off the internet. And I'm like, yeah, we can't do that. It would have been about $9,000 to produce that because she needed rights to 9 different people. And the commercial rights for those, because they're celebrities, were about $1,000 a piece. So be sure that you have the commercial licenses for that. The other reason that I say that is because there are now companies that their sole focus is to go out and see if you have violated image copyrights, music copyrights. That's why so many people are designing their music on AI so they don't violate copyrights. Podetize actually had an author who was on one of their podcasts who was originally with Simon Schuster. And all they did was mention the author in the bio that her previous book was with Simon and Schuster. Simon and Schuster sent someone out and she had 400 episodes of a podcast taken down because of that one mistake. And they worked feverishly with the other publisher to get that back up. So they have a lot of these bigger platforms like Spotify, Apple. If you violate a copyright, they'll take everything you're doing down. So it is really important to be able to prove you have those licenses. And lucky for us, Podetize, somebody questioned one of my licenses. They had the graphics license. So we never got taken down because they always buy the licenses like they're supposed to. Fees and setup, understand what your publisher is going to charge you for. Is everything included in the contract? We actually have revision charges. I don't get around to doing them very often, but I just did recently because we had an author who approved the entire book. And then 2 weeks later said, oh, I never looked at it. And we had uploaded it, formatted, cover design, and had it converted to Kindle. And so I charged her. She admitted, she's like, oh, I never read my contract. I didn't know. And that's not a good answer. Please read your contract. So understand that what's in there and how diligent you have to be about getting all this up. Johanna, oh, hey, let me do this one more slide and then I'll let you take it for what you do with the agent contracts. Distribution. Find out what your distribution is. Distribution's important. I have two books on the table right now that I'm republishing because they didn't understand that it was an Amazon white label. And so they didn't have bookstore distribution. They walked into a bookstore, said, "Hey, can you carry a couple copies of this in the local Barnes and Noble?" And they told them no, because they were an Amazon only published. So understand, do you really have true worldwide distribution beyond Amazon? What a lot of people don't understand with Amazon, because Amazon makes a big deal about their quote worldwide distribution, is not everybody in the world is as high on Amazon as Americans are. I personally think I should go to Amazon Anonymous because I have stuff on my doorstep every single day, pretty much. But if you go over to Europe, one of our clients is Jane Fonda's personal trainer. She's from Sweden. They don't buy from Amazon EU, they buy from Storytel. We have another who's big in Italy, and they don't buy from Amazon Italy. They have their own online bookstores that people buy from. So make sure that you have the right distribution. And then bookstores, libraries, and educational institutions, is your book available for those? Now, a lot of people think my book should be in the library, my book should be in educational bookstores. I want you to understand educational bookstores are easier because if you're someone like Peter with a PhD, he's going to have an easier time getting himself into Berkeley's bookstore or Stanford's bookstore than someone like me who, I just got a regular old Bachelor of Science, boring. That people are going to take his expertise into consideration. So he's going to have an easier time. When it comes to libraries, these are public institutions that run on budgets. And so if you are publishing your book in the middle of the year, chances are you're not going to be able to get it into a library because they've already blown their budget for the year on new books. And then bookstores, everybody thinks are the gold standard. The truth is, you can lose a lot of money getting your book in a bookstore because they're basically taking those books on consignment, and though their return policies, you will get charged back more on a return than you will make from the royalty of selling that book. So, and the truth about bookstores too is unless you like a particular author when you walk into one, if your book is not on an end cap, and the books on the end cap are usually, Simon and Schuster, Random House, those big places paying for it, people aren't going to find your book. That's why if you do go into your local Barnes and Noble, have them order three or four. Don't go all out on it. And the bookstore signings, we had an author last year who got burned big time. She had a book and she had a workbook, and Barnes and Noble required 100 of each, and 37 of each were returned. She got a bill for about $1,500 back from me because the books were returned. And when I say returned, they're not returned to you. They're destroyed or liquidated, but you still have to pay on it. So, okay, Johanna, you want to take it and then I'll get back to rights here?
Sure. Wow, can I just say, Juliet, you covered a lot of really interesting and important topics. I think the whole AI topic in publishing, I just want to say I spoke with a publisher yesterday who echoed that same sentiment that Amazon is getting, they're really cracking down on any books that are trying to get pushed through that have AI in them, which I'm happy to hear because it's already a competitive enough environment, let alone to be competing with robots to write books. So I think that's huge.
Johanna, real quick, it's not just
Yeah.
Amazon. Ingram also, when you
Yes.
upload, yeah,
Yes.
Ingram you have to designate as well.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I mean, they're all kind of in the same boat. So the thing I won't be able to cover everything today, but I'd like to touch on some of the topics that you already mentioned, which are really important. So one you mentioned was what we call subrights, and you want to be careful about giving away subrights. That means, like you mentioned, if the book gets converted into a court, or let's say it's a nonfiction, it could become a documentary, or even some other. It becomes I don't know, like an online game even. But what I encourage people to do, and to your point about getting someone to read that with you, I mean, at least read the contract yourself. I know that sounds really fundamental, but you'd be surprised what you can understand if you slow down and kind of read through things. And there's probably a few words that are going to be you're going to stumble over, but just learn those words. Like the word I just put in the chat is reserves. So I have
Mm.
one of those crazy stories. So yeah, to your point about the bookstores and the signings, I mean, people don't realize that, 80% of book sales are online. You don't, there's this myth that you need to be in bookstores. Well, that's a nice to have, but it's not going to make or break the success of your book to be in bookstores. And what happens is if you're with a traditional publisher who can get you in bookstores, watch out for reserves. And what that is the publisher will, when they send you a royalty statement, they can hold a percentage of your royalties for quote unquote reserves. That means they're expecting the bookstores or even now Amazon to return a percentage of those books that they've shipped out to them or they've like gotten orders for already. Because a publisher will do what's called a print run, where they will publish 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 copies of your book, and then they will work with Amazon and Simon and Schuster to make those sales. So I've had clients who were shocked to find a third, a half of their royalties for significant royalties to be either held or to have been basically charged back against the royalties for reserves. Does that make sense?
It not only makes sense, I had a publishing company approach me about buying them. And when I looked at their balance sheet, I asked where their reserves were,
Yeah.
and they did not have them in the balance sheet. So I would not buy the company because I didn't
Yeah.
want to get stuck with
Yeah.
that liability.
Yeah. Exactly. So that's something to just be aware of. And then the second thing about subrights, I would just add a caveat to your statement, Juliet, that you don't wanna give away the sub rights sort of willy-nilly, but depending on who the publisher is, sometimes it can make sense to do that. Like, if you're dealing with there's one publisher that does a lot of really great courses, for example. Like, so in other words, if your publisher is in the course business and that's part of their business model, then clearly you're gonna benefit. Or like, let's say Hay House. I mean, Hay House does a good job doing courses as an example. So it's really situational. You want to evaluate that question based on who the publisher is and what they offer. Also, international foreign rights, translation rights. If it's a big publisher, they are probably going to have you're probably going to actually save money by not going to another agent. Because for me as an agent, let's say I'm going to charge you the industry standard 15% of your royalties. If I take your book to UK, Europe, South America, I'm gonna have to partner with another agent, and together we're gonna charge you 20 to 25%, and that's standard. So if a publisher has strong relationships internationally themselves, it can actually make sense for you to give them the translation rights. But you wanna just be mindful of the size of the publisher and if that's their wheelhouse, specialty, etc. The other thing you can negotiate is the percentage of those subrights. So normally, like for documentary, film, international, they'll do like what's a 50-50 split. I mean, that's a classic kind of thing on a contract you'll see, but you can negotiate like, well, if you guys are really going to make a movie about this, I want, 75%. Or if you're going to do international rights, I think that's going to be popular. I want this higher amount. So those are kind of two different things. One is, do you give them those rights? And two is, what percentage of those rights do you give them? So those are two important topics that I think, Juliet, you've touched on that I would really pay close attention to with a publisher. And maybe a third one I'll just address today is that what else do they pay for? Or what else is included? And a lot of publishers today don't do advances or do smaller advances, but you do want to be very careful in understanding like what are you getting for that money. And one thing that's shifted a lot in even with the bigger books and the bigger houses and like where there is an advance is that publishers will no longer commit to making like a marketing budget commitment to you. And a lot of my clients will be like, "Well, what are they going to do for me? What's the trajectory for marketing and how much are they going to spend? And are they going to get me into these bookstores and will they pay for a speaker tour?" And the answer is normally no. I mean, more and more so the answer is no. So I would really I think I'm a big fan of what Juliet does and what she offers because I think it's becoming more and more logical to question whether a traditional publishing deal even makes sense. And that's coming from me as an agent saying that. And that's because ultimately publishers are looking for a business partner. They're looking for somebody who's going to actually put skin in the game beyond just writing the book, can actually show up and plan their book tour, can even put their own money into marketing the book and PR. It's really important for you to get, on shows if it's a nonfiction book, for example, and talk about the book in the context of what's going on in current events and so forth. So, all of those things are manageable. It's really about breaking it down into kind of bite-sized thoughts, is the way I like to
Mhm.
put it. And really, I'll just say lastly that it's really I like to think of a good book as something you're willing, and this might sound crazy, that you're willing to commit like a decade of your life to marketing. And I don't say that lightly, but think of some of the great books. My favorite book story, I'll just tell quickly, is Wayne Dyer's story, which not many people know. But Wayne Dyer wrote Your Erroneous Zones in a motel room in like 2 weeks. He was a professor at Wayne State University. So once he felt the bigness of that book and he got a book deal, he quit his job. He had a station wagon. I guess this is in the 80s or whatever. He loaded up his station wagon with 5,000 copies of his book that he bought from the publisher. He drove around the country to every Unity church and booked himself to speak. I mean, I just love that story, and it's old school, but there's no reason it can't be converted into something in today's terms. And I think with the support of someone like Juliet, all those things are possible. And I love books and I love the passion of people who write books, but writing the book is the easy part. What you do with it after that is really where the work starts. I'm just going to leave that there.
That is very true. Very true. Well, I think you covered the rights. Quick question though. So when I worked at Price Stern Sloan, we would give advances, and the advances are against royalties. And back then, we just sort of wrote them off. I suspect in today's economic environment that you have to give it back, don't you?
I honestly have not personally had an instance where we've had to give the advances back. I think there's
Okay.
kind of a two-prong answer to that. One is advances have gotten a lot smaller. And, even a couple decades ago, let's say, I have a colleague who co-wrote the book with Wozniak, Steve Wozniak. And, I don't know the exact number, but I know we were talking about, she was saying, back then, you write a book like that, you get the advance payment and you literally don't expect any more money after that. So that's
Yeah.
kind of the different model. I don't know of any examples like where the book has stayed with the publisher and they've asked for the advance back. I mean, sometimes if there's a conflict in with between the author and the publisher, they might. But actually that's an advantage to not taking a big advance is you
Yeah,
don't.
it is.
And another thing that is true is if you've taken a big advance and the book hasn't done well, it sets you up poorly for the next book deal. So,
Yeah, that is
it's
very true.
really better to just I actually have a lot of clients that make their money in the future revenue, meaning like they didn't take an advance, but they're 2 or 3 years out still making some money off the royalties, which is awesome. Like I love that. So,
Last thing on publishing, Kindle and ebook distribution. Make sure when you work with your publisher that you have an author led build out for the book launch. And what I mean by that is that you are in control of your book launch. A lot of times there are book launches. If a publisher has put your book launch into their Amazon white label and they're taking 20% of it, you don't have access to change the price of your book. You don't have access. to advertise and manage campaigns. So make sure that you have control of your pre-launch strategy and the build out for it so that you can control and make money the way you want to. And what I mean by that is I have a doctor who was a poor student in high school, and now he is a doctor. And he has a book. When he goes out to schools to talk to high schools, to talk to students about it, he zooms that book, that ebook down to 99 cents so those students are able to buy it on the spot because most high schoolers have 99 cents. But he has control of that Amazon dashboard so that he can go in and adjust the price, the ads, and all that on it. Okay, red flags, not to purchase, to walk away. Publishing companies that charge you for distribution and have an on my site only policy. Publishing companies that try to sell you bookmarkers and cards. Non-functional websites. If they try to sell you a website that is not digitally optimized, meaning you can do digital marketing on it, it's not worth your time. And it's a lot of them charge large hosting fees for them. So they're really not any good. And cheap production. So somebody told me last week that they went with a particular company and they couldn't believe how cheap the book was. And I was not one bit surprised. It looked like the cover was rolling and it was really bad. So if you get those, if you don't have 100% of your rights, you see major red flags, walk away on that. Takeaways from the contracts. Make sure you have manuscript delivery requirements, cover ship design and ownership, fees and revision charges, markup structures, know what what your publisher is taking. Personally, I don't take any of the back end because you pay me to publish your book. I'm probably one of the only companies out there that doesn't. I equate it to theft. Kind of taxation is theft. Me taking part of your royalties for a self-published or a hybrid book is theft. You own your rights and royalties. You know your royalty calculations. You understand distribution and marketing and sales terms. So don't sign a contract without understanding these areas. So I do want to get into a book club scam that's out there. Many of you may be getting emails. They're really flattering. Your book is amazing. Our book club wants it. Don't fall for this. This is actually they get your bank account, they steal your money. It's not a fun thing. I actually pursued one of these. They wanted I think the November 2023, they wanted my magazine and I pursued it just to see where they were going with it and it validated. So any of these things you get an email for, if you're not aware of who this marketing company is, either research them fully or you can always ask me. I just recently had someone who thought she was going to be in USA Today for $199, and I couldn't find this company anywhere. The other thing that's a big scam that I don't have on here that Johanna mentioned is be sure if you're going to do foreign rights that you work with an agent or somebody that has a good reputation, because that can be a big scam too when companies reach out and say, well, we'd love to have you publish. We'd love to do rights in Bulgaria. They will
Yeah,
steal your book.
can I just make a comment on that, Julia?
Very, very quick. I got to finish here.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
just there's a lot of companies that it's pay to play. They'll translate your book for you, but they come across sounding like a publisher in another country.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So verify independently, treat the upfront payment as suspect, and then report fraud attempts on these. There are just a lot of them out there right now. I have 10 books. I got one for every single book plus the magazine. So I know they're prolifically hitting people right now up with this on it. So I have Gary on here today, my partner for the Perfect Reader Playbook. And I wanted to share this with you guys. We have a book coming out on March 3rd, and it is not only a book, but we have a customized marketing report that goes with it and a course that'll help you as well. I am coming from the publishing world and then going to the marketing world. I hear so many of you that are very disappointed with your author platforms and what you're doing. What we have done is we have created a program that actually speaks to the science of marketing and how to build your nonfiction marketing, not only for your book, but for your programs and services. So there are 5 points here of awareness that you should be doing with your marketing that works. We have the unaware phase, the problem aware phase, solution aware phase, product aware phase, and then the most aware. That's where they purchase. I see every single author that comes into me lately. In fact, for the most part, I will say probably 95% of them, you guys are going out to sell a product. Nobody knows who you are. Nobody knows they have a problem. You can't build awareness at that point. Nobody knows you're the solution. So there is a way to build this so you can actually sell these books. And that's what Gary and I did. Gary actually designed the program. We ask you 8 questions and you get a comprehensive marketing report with all 5 phases, who the psychographics, the demographics, what your pitch is when you speak to people. And for those of you who have businesses, there's actually a client attraction and client retention piece at the end of it. It's about 20 pages. It is a substantial report and it should be your playbook. It is, the programs go right along with the book that is coming out on the 3rd. And we have a couple ways that you guys can go kind of test it out right now. We have the first 3 modules we're giving away for free right now at findyouridealavatar.com. So you can work through those first 3 modules. There are 15 modules total if you buy the course. And you can buy the course on its own and work it with the book, or you can buy the report and the course. If you buy the report, I do a session with you to go through what you're doing. One of the things that the report has that I'm so excited about is from the advertising world, you need to know what your buying hooks are, why people buy from you. And I have not seen a marketing program out there that actually addresses that. So, as boring as it may sound, we're actually getting into the deep work that could not only improve how many books you sell, but improve your content development, have you understand those 5 phases of marketing and actually what the buying hooks are and what works best for you. So if you're interested, go download the 3 modules first. If you want to talk to me more about it and have it run, go grab a spot on my calendar. It's chatwithjuliet.com and we'll get you in. Right now, we have pricing that will probably change very soon. The report is $9.97. The full course and the report together is $24.97. But we've already got people in it that heard about it from another call, and they're already telling us like, why are you charging so little? So Gary and I are going to be rethinking that pricing as well. And I know Johanna is going to be out trying to sell it to some publishers too. So if it's something you're interested, get on board with us and do that. And then Johanna, tell us where to find your course, your contract course.
Yeah, so, you can find me at clearlantern.media, and we will put the course up there, and I'd love to put this up there too, Juliet, for people. This is amazing. So, I will get that out to everyone from there.
Okay. Well, that's it. Any questions? I know we hosed you again. Okay, Gary, do you want to say a few words? You were a part of this. I probably should let you say a few words too, but he's a man of few words, so I don't know.
Yeah, I was just I wasn't on the camera today. I was just kind of exploring the contracts, but I'm looking forward to working with everyone here on just the AI tools that we can do to help with our platforms, marketing, and anything else under the sun.
Yeah. This guy's a genius. He's a nuclear engineer, so I don't know why he's working with us on books, but he is an AI genius, I will tell you that. And he does have a book of his own that actually you have courses they're selling in the Philippines, don't you? Around your book.
Yeah, I've been doing some workshops around the book to just help entrepreneurs because I'm a firm believer in one of I grew up. My mom was from the Philippines, and there's just this cultural aversion to taking risk, and I wanted to help give back by sharing the belief that anyone can be an entrepreneur no matter where they came from, and that was one of the reasons that I've looked at helping overseas, and even to generate and create some of these tools that we're using with AI. It just enables a lot more people and empowers them to become entrepreneurs, lift their businesses, and grow to be profitable.
Yeah. And actually, you guys, he knows all about subrights because he was on an episode of an Amazon show as well about his book. So, all right, that's it. Next month, we're going to have Tracy Hazard, and she's going to be talking about branding your book. And she has a new program called Brander that she will be sharing as well. That if you're going to be doing a podcast or a book, super helpful in getting your profile done. So, all right. Thank you.